Hey guys, Dr. Danny McLane here, ADIO Chiropractic Libertyville, just coming back to you with another little clinical tidbit, accurate thinking, making sure that we're addressing the right issue. One of the things that I see pretty often, so it lets me know that it doesn't really get checked or there's not a lot of common knowledge about it. It gives me perspective, right? Because I spent a lot of time reading through a lot of different literature, and I talked to a lot of the old dogs that have been in the industry for a long time, and maybe they happened upon something in their career that was super relevant to them. And I just like to collect those techniques because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about results. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping myself up to speed as to different ways to help you guys. And one of the things I see that affects people way more than they think is scars. Like anytime the surface of the skin gets broken, whether it's a surgery, whether it's an accident, an injury, anything like that, I've had some pretty interesting scars. Basically, what ends up happening, though, I'll give you the physiology of it just real quick, then I'll tell you some stories because I think that they really drive home a point. Let's see. So what happens is when the surface of the skin gets cut, it creates an irregular mesh of non-elastic fibers, and through the process of wound contraction, it sort of pulls everything back together. Now, that's a very slow process, and it's also a very low priority process. What happens sometimes is if there's like a high degree of illness, or if there's sickness, or if there's another injury, or if there's a lot of emotional stress, while that scar is forming, the body puts it on hold and says, well, that's important, but there's this other thing that's far more important. We're going to go take care of that now. And then sometimes it'll go back and fix the scar, and sometimes it won't. And it's when the body doesn't go back to fix that old scar that causes a problem, and it stuns people. And it's demonstratable. Like, if somebody's moving around and they're like, oh, I'll just jump into a story real quick. There's a lady that I was treating. I treated her once. She was going to another chiropractor local around here, and she was getting adjusted like once a week and a massage for like 3 years. And it was 3 years specifically. I remember that because she said she had a 3-year-old daughter. My little girl at that time was right around that same age. So I was like, oh. Anyway, so it stuck for whatever reason. Anyway, so she was getting treated once a week for like 3 years and nothing, right? Chronic back pain, chronic hip pain. She couldn't sit for a long period of time. She couldn't stand for a long period of time. She's having a hard time doing laundry and dishes and going up and downstairs and chasing after her 3-year-old, which, I have a hard time chasing after my 3-year-old. I'm pretty healthy. But anyway, so she was in chronic pain, and there was not a lot of stuff that would fix it. And she did PT and exercise and all this other stuff. And I asked her, I said, well, how was your daughter born? And she told me it's a C-section. And I said, well, it's probably the scar. And she kind of looked at me funny, like, well, that's like 3 years old. Why does it even matter? So I was doing I do a lot of functional neurology, applied kinesiology, muscle testing, that kind of stuff, because I want to see what's actually happening in the moment, right? Like we could do scans and we could take pictures and all this other stuff, but that tells me a snapshot in time. I want to see a real-time evaluation of what's going on. So, and with scars, you can do that. What you can do is get a strong muscle and push on it and then touch the scar, and then when you push on that muscle, it'll blow it out if that scar is still active. Sometimes you got to rub the scar a little bit or stretch the skin. And that happens quite a bit, right? Like, so if she was going to twist, and where the C-section scar was, if she's going to twist and it pulls on that tissue, it's going to send that panic signal to the brain, basically saying, whoa, this scar is still fresh, even though it's 3 years old. Those neurons haven't fully updated yet. It's a weird phenomena. Like, I'll totally, give you that. But I see it a lot. It happens. So, and then when we treat it, problem goes away. So for her, I treated her once. I adjusted her. We did a scar treatment on her, and it basically solved her problem. She said that she was still a little stiff, a little achy, but a little massage after that was no big deal. But she was definitely far more functional. And I've had colleagues like, well, if she was going for 3 years and you only saw her one visit, how does that serve you in a business sense? And I said, I'm not here to worry about my business. I'm here to do a great job with people. And by the way, she sent me her friend and her other friend and one of their coworkers, and then that kind of builds the chain, right? There's no shortage of sick people. I don't need to keep the same 12 people in my office over and over, especially when something like that can help them. Now, granted, there's people that do need regular care and ongoing stuff, and that's great. But for something like a scar, that's going to cause a constant instability. So then everything else around that's going to be an issue. I had a guy that was in here older gentleman, I don't know, probably somewhere in his 50s, 60s, somewhere like that. I didn't really ask, and I probably should have looked, but whatever. So he'd been in for a while. I worked on him. He went on a vacation, came back, tried. He was, working with a couple of different practitioners, and nowhere in his intake did it say that he had a surgery in the past. At least not specifically related to what we're looking at, but it was hip problem, leg issues, muscle contraction, weakness, instability kind of stuff, low back, that whole low back hip area. And I asked him, he'd said something about, he had a hernia surgery because that area was kind of breaking down. And he's like, he's like, that scar doesn't bother me, but this other one does. And he was telling me about how he had a vasectomy a long, long, long time ago, and it hit me, and I was so frustrated. I was like, that's what the problem, like, that's the problem. It's been there the whole friggin' time, and I missed it. I don't very often miss. Once in a while, and once in a great while, because I probably pay way more attention than I need to people, but I think that's better. If I had to choose, like, miss a bunch of stuff, win all the time, I would say, like, win all the time, even if it's more work on my part. I'm willing to do the work. I mean, your health is worth it. That's really the whole reason why I do this. So it totally was like one of those moments. And sure enough, we lasered him, and the tenderness and the soreness and the instability went away like boom. Yeah, we treated him right away, and he got better. Immediate change, like while he was in the office. Fantastic. And then we went back and put a couple of things back together. Now, granted, the rest of the tissue still got to heal and that sort of thing, but there was an immediate change when we addressed the proper scar. So I was really excited we found that. And that's a story that I've seen play out over and over and over, to the point now where somebody's like, I have chronic back pain. Okay, do you have any scars in that region? Especially if for females, C-section scars or episiotomies or anything like that. I've had some ladies that have had breast augmentation, and that causes lots of issues, or facelift. I've also had people that have had like thyroid surgeries, or any kind of like appendectomy or tonsillitis or a tonsillectomy. Sometimes even like wisdom teeth, like some people with chronic jaw pain or headaches. It's just the wisdom tooth scars. Those ones usually heal pretty well because they're constantly being, your brain's being reminded of it. But the scars happen all over, like hand, wrist, cuts, scrapes, bumps, nicks, whatever. It happens. So that's something that I always look for. So if you have problems that are kind of chronic, that they come back, maybe they go away for a little while, but then they get re-triggered, that might be something to think about. And I'd be more than happy to help you out with that. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below, and I'll do my best to get back to those. I cannot give you any medical advice on the internet. So if there's anybody you want me to talk to in your local area about getting you some more information, I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, you're welcome to come see me. Hope that helps. Stay tuned.